All right, welcome to the Roast It Yourself podcast. Welcome back to the Roast It Yourself podcast, brought to you by Coffee Bean Corral and Current Crop Roasting Shop. My name is Stephen Burnett with Coffee Bean Corral in Jackson, Mississippi. And with me, as always, is Catherine Mansell, certified Q grader and director of Current Crop Roasting Shop in New Orleans, Louisiana. Catherine, what's going on? How are you today?
I'm good. I'm good. It's been raining cats and dogs here in New Orleans, but we got a little bit of sunshine. So we're going to set up a table and hand out some free samples. How are you?
Beautiful, beautiful. I'm doing well. We're just every night when I get ready for bed, I'm a worrier when it comes to storms, and they always
Yeah.
show up at bedtime. Like whatever time I'm getting in bed, that's when like howling wind emerges. And last night, my wife said, "Steven, I have a long day tomorrow. I don't care if sirens are going off. I don't care if there's a tornado outside. You take our son, take him to the bathroom and hide out and leave me in peace." And so I said, "All right." So yeah, we survived. We're all good, and that's wonderful. Well, each week we set aside about 10 minutes to field questions from home coffee roasters and professionals alike about roasting, tasting, and most importantly, enjoying coffee. You can send your questions to questions@riypod.com. That's questions@riypod.com to get a nice shout out from us in an upcoming episode, and of course to get your questions answered. Now we're going to put a pause. We've got some good questions in the can, but we've been talking and we wanted to actually start addressing in a more systematic fashion tips for beginners, things that people that are just getting started in coffee might need to know. And we've done a lot on specific roasters and how to buy a roaster, which one you should be looking for, all that kind of stuff. But now you've got your roaster, or even if you don't have one, you've got a cast iron skillet and you've got some beans, and you want to learn roasting, you want to grow as a roaster. We want to give you and provide you some information on how to do that. Now, before old timers, people that have been roasting for a while, before you just skip to the next podcast, this is basic stuff, but it's really fundamental. So I encourage you, like, this is something I talk to people every day who roast coffee, and a lot of them that we get lazy on the basics and fundamentals, and then our roast suffer because of that. So
Yeah.
just take a few minutes, listen to this, hear us out on it. It's a practice that maybe you're doing great, and you'll be like totally affirmed that you're doing the right thing. That feels good. And maybe you've kind of slept off and forgotten, and you'll be encouraged to pick this back up. So what am I talking about today? Well, you can probably tell from the title, if I did a remotely good job titling this episode, that we're talking about logging your roast. I'm talking about logging your roast, recording what happens and when during your roast process. And this is something that can be done. People kind of think, oh, well, if I get a nice roaster with a computer connection, then I can have a roast log. But there are a bunch of ways of doing this with every single style of roasting. If you're roasting it in a skillet, if you're roasting it, people do it in air roasters. Don't recommend. But I'm talking about like a air fryer situation. Don't do that. But whatever you're roasting in, you can log your roast. So we're going to get into specific ways of doing that, no matter what your setup is. We're going to talk about the importance of it, and we're going to talk about the fruits of it, why you would want to do this. So Catherine, let's start at the very end and go forward. Why would anybody want to log a roast?
Well, consistency in the long run for sure, but you want to have your information so you know what you did wrong or what you did right. And I think I still to this day use a fresh roast all the time. I love those roasters, but I don't always follow the guide depending on how the beans are reacting. And I think because I know it so well, I don't write that down all the time. And there's nothing worse than tasting a coffee and thinking, wow, that's fantastic. And then trying to do it again without any information on what you did the previous time. So being able to have all of that information to really figure out your do's and don'ts going forward is super helpful.
Well, and I find that I'll get a gut instinct about a coffee watching it change, and so I'll make an adjustment. You get rewarded by that after you've done it for long enough, but then I don't remember my gut instinct later. I know how I always do it.
Right.
So in order to recapture that, I'd have to hopefully have that same muse hit me at the same time. And look, I'll be the first to admit, far from being a sanctimonious episode of the podcast, I've fallen off of this in a big way. And so this is as much for me as anybody else, especially with a roaster like the fresh roast that you just get to know really, really well. to the
Right.
point that you have instincts about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I used to take copious notes. I would record everything, and I had a system for that. I'll show that in a minute. But yeah, to me, the consistency aspect of it is huge. I also I find, if someone calls in and they have a problem with the coffee, the first questions I ask them, hey, what are you tasting? Like, don't just say coffee's bad, it's not good, it's not smooth. Don't say those things. Say, look, what is wrong with it? What are you tasting? What aren't you tasting that you expect?
Yeah.
Um, and then after you tell me that, I'm going to say, okay, how did you roast it? When did you hit first crack? When did you drop the coffee? How did you
Mm-hmm.
cool the coffee? Anything weird? Like, and if you don't have any notes on it, 10 to 15 minutes is not a helpful range for
Yeah.
like how long the roast was. It's very
Yeah.
different
Yeah.
roasts.
Yeah.
So if you're able to record it, then you're able to actually have some data
Mm-hmm.
and be specific in figuring out what's wrong with it, or having someone help. So
Yeah.
that's also huge.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think those are two big with consistency. The other, and honestly, learning coffee roasting.
Mm-hmm.
When before you get the instinct for it, and Catherine, you and I, we've both experienced this of like, what did I do?
Mm-hmm.
Like the coffee's darker now, hopefully, right? What in the world happened? I heard it. Why was it popping? I heard popping. What's up with that? What's
Yeah.
going on with all of this? And then you taste it later, and it's like whatever. But if you record your roast as a beginner, you will learn what's happening and how what you do affects the coffee.
Yeah.
So that's pretty big. Now we're going to do this. I'm going to show you guys a couple of things, but will you hold up the book that you had? We're going to have a picture of this as well, a
Yeah.
little fancier. Okay, this is a roast log book, and so I just see the bottom of it. There you go. You're doing the camera. I forget. It's a roast log book, and so it's actually a systematic fashion, so you can actually record what's happening in your roast. It's kind of
Mm-hmm.
small. We sell them on the site.
Yeah.
I'll link that in the show notes. If you get that, some people find it really small and like annoying in that
Mm.
way. It's
Yeah.
also handy, which I guess that's the fight. But
Yeah.
one guy I know literally photocopied it and enlarged it to like 8 and a half by 11. I was like, well,
Nice.
that's just genius, right?
Yeah. It
So
is.
I'm not recommending you do that because I'm sure it's illegal. But if you're hard of seeing, maybe that's something you could do.
Yeah.
But that's one method. I use this method right here, like
Yeah.
literally. I just record, and I'll walk through how to do that in a minute. But
Yeah.
my point in showing you guys this is you can have a paper notebook that's designed for this. You can just use a notebook, like a
Yeah.
lined ruled notebook. You don't have to have anything
Yeah.
fancy. And then you also, if you have a machine that has temperature probes, you can attach that to a software like Artisan, or if you have the Bullet Roast Time, there's other ones. And Catherine, would you talk a little bit? You've done a lot of roasts and logged a lot of roasts
Yeah.
in roast time specifically. So talk to me about how that compares to something like paper notes and what the benefits are to that.
Sure. Well, what I'm really doing is making sure I have at what time and at what temperature everything starts to happen. And you can do that in the 33 roast book or the one that you have. What time into the roast are you getting into this phase? How long did it take to get here and here? And what are the temperature changes?
Yeah.
Because as I mark it in roast time, it breaks everything down through yellowing, Maillard development. So I can see
Right.
my percentages. But even if you don't have something that's showing you the percentages, you can figure that out later anyway. As long as you have at what point in the roast have the beans finished yellowing and are going into the Maillard phase, and then how long after first crack do you drop? And so you're breaking everything down. So you can just mark that on a notebook and say, start your timer at this time. This is what happened at this time. This is what happened. And then depending on what your roast tastes like later, you can go back, use the same beans again and tweak
Right.
some things so you can highlight what you're looking for.
Mm-hmm. And you can use the same beans. You can use similar beans,
Yeah.
similar altitude, some
Yeah.
similar density. We'll have an episode coming out about how to account for density in coffee.
Yeah.
It's a big deal when you're roasting.
Yeah.
But I want to go through. So I have a pretty simple method that all you have to have is a notebook for, and it works
Yeah.
for most coffee roasting. I mean, really anything. It's just a notebook. You can make it whatever you want.
Yeah.
But I found it really helpful with the fresh roast. And so, and I'm gonna hopefully I'm gonna have this on screen. So if not, well, I'm so sorry. Use your imagination. But what I do is across the top of a piece of paper, I write TFPTE, and that stands for time, power, or fan. Sorry, time, fan, power, temperature, and then event. And I record that across the top so that I can, I have a space to put all these things. And then going down this vertical axis, I have minutes, 0 through 12. Now, I usually don't roast that long on the fresh roast anyway. So if you're roasting on a drum roaster, if you roast a little longer than that, you can of course extend this down and keep recording and tracking things. But this is an actual real roast that I did. I did it on this is I rewrote it because the piece of paper I used was terrible and illegible. But this is a real roast and what actually happened in it. And so what I do at minute 0, and I'll hopefully have a better picture of this, but at minute 0, I record the initial settings of the roaster. So if you have a roaster where you're setting a preheat temperature, you could record a preheat temperature that way. If on the fresh roast, you don't preheat it, I don't preheat it. So I just have my fan was at 9, and then my power, which is at 6. I couldn't see that. And then, of course, no events taking place. It just started.
Yeah.
At 1 minute, I then make whatever changes and then I record whatever temperature. And so at 1 minute, I dropped it down to 7 on the fan and 5 on the power, and then I recorded the temperature, which is 358. Then at minute 2, I do another recording. Now, why am I doing that? I'm not recording every single. I'm choosing to make my movements on the minute as opposed to whenever I want to. So
Yeah.
if I would change something at maybe 6 minutes and 33 seconds, I'm waiting till 7 minutes.
Right.
And that's just so I can record it accurately and quickly. I don't, it's more accurate if I could put down 6 minutes, 33 seconds, but I know I'd rather not have to write those numbers out and maybe miss something else. It's more distracting.
Yeah.
So this way, I'm able just to record every activity on the minute so that I know what I did when I did it. And yeah, maybe I'm 30 seconds off of what I would have liked to do. I can make a note of that if I want to. But this just enables me to think about it and not have to, not get distracted or get confused or anything.
Right.
So, and I want you to notice something with the fresh roast. We talked about this quite a bit. Right down here, minute 6, we're at fan 7, and our temperature and our power set at 5, temperature's 436. Okay. At minute 7, we drop to 6, and we're at 437. Okay. Power or fan has dropped down one whole number, and we haven't moved because it's the same time that I made the adjustment. Well, look here. The next minute, I went from 437 to 462, and all I did was drop the fan one. Mm-hmm. So anyway, that's something you can do here, and it's really simple. So I'll have hopefully an image of that where you can see it a little bit better. But that's just a really simple way of scratching some notes on a piece of paper in a systemized fashion, and getting results. And I also put first crack. Now I'm more specific here. I want to record when first crack happened. I put that under events. You can put like drying phase or whenever. If you note those things, that's more precise and helpful. But I always want to record first crack, and then I want to record when I dropped it, and I do those as notes on the second. So I go, okay, I dropped it at 10 minutes and 30 seconds. And I had first crack around 8 minutes and 30 seconds. Yeah. So that's really helpful, just so you know when these things happen. Yeah. But yeah, that's my method with this. The other one is pretty self-explanatory because they have a graph for everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, to me that's helpful. Now, once you have this data, there's a lot more you can do. You can track your weight loss percentages. You can track rate of rise after the fact. I like. Can you show that notebook one more time? I like the fact that you have a built-in graph. And it encourages you to sketch out with a pencil the line, which I think is super handy. Yeah. So you can after you don't do that while you're roasting. You're going to come back later based on the numbers and do it. That would be crazy if you could do that. But yeah, that's just really nice to be able to see. And then once you have that curve, you can compare that to curves you see online and kind of see where you're at. So that's a little complicated with my any notebook thing. But it's something else that you can do. Now, maybe you've got a fresh roast, or let me say this real quick. Maybe you're roasting in a little skillet or frying pan, and you go, I don't have settings. I don't have fan or power. What do you want me to record? Well, the simplest thing to record is observe the beans. And if you have a way of marking, if it's on your stove or on a camp stove, you have a way of marking what temperature, or what setting you had the gas at. So
Mhm.
you can kind of at least know, hey, that was really too fast. I should lower that next time. That's
Right.
helpful. Um, if you can, and I've seen people do this, they use a little no contact temperature reader, infrared, and they'll hit the skillet with it just to get readings on the surface of the skillet. You can record that. And of course, record what happens to the coffee when you're hitting first crack, all that kind of stuff. I mean, you
Yeah.
can, because it's just paper, you can adjust it. But the point is the importance of keeping track of those kinds of things if you want
Right.
to improve and do better. But yeah, Catherine. So that's kind of my method here. Like, did you ever take? And sometimes it's harder with stuff like the Gene Cafe or the Be More, where you're doing maybe a little less. You have a little less, direct control. Do you ever
Right.
take notes on those roasters, or what advice do you have for people that have something like that?
For the Gene Cafe, really, I went through and I would mark um, the temperature that was popping up as I'm reaching first crack.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so because it's sort of a set your time, set your temperature, and then press start sort of thing, you would think that you don't have anything to mark down. But during the
Mm-hmm.
roast, as long as you are paying attention to what is happening, you can still mark that down and set your timer and take all the notes that you want. And you can get into
Mm-hmm.
preheating the Gene Cafe. You don't have to preheat the Gene Cafe. But even seeing what the beans look like before they go into that cool down phase is really important too, because it
Mm-hmm.
has such a long cool down phase. You need to be paying attention to what's happening before it goes into that and take account on um, how much it roasts during that. So you need to be making notes
Mm-hmm.
anyway, because if you aren't prepared for it and you let that coffee go all the way through the cool down phase and you didn't prepare for it, it'll be so much darker than you thought
Right.
it would be. So making sure to pay attention and being prepared for that by taking notes throughout the process is really helpful.
I think that's great, and that's
Yeah.
something else. And here's something else to record. I didn't think about this until I started roasting with the Kaleido. The Kaleido automatically records in Artisan the ambient temperature.
Mm, yeah.
Huge deal,
Mm-hmm.
huge deal to have
Yeah.
that. And I mean, it's one of those things I never thought to record that when I'm roasting.
Yeah.
But our warehouse can be 60 degrees. It can
Mm-hmm.
be 75 degrees.
Yeah.
That's a big difference when it
Yeah.
comes to coffee roasting. When it comes to cool down, and you go in there and go, I'm going to use the same settings all the time. Well, especially if you've got an air roaster like a Gene Cafe or Fresh Roast, like it's just pulling in ambient air and it's
Yeah.
only able to heat it up so much. And so, yeah, it's going to throw your numbers off.
Yeah.
We sell the voltage meter,
Yeah.
super handy. Use an electric roaster. What is that? That's a data point. It's another data point because voltage fluctuates based on time of day, and if you have more of it coming into your outlet when you're roasting, your roaster's going to have more power, and if you
Right.
have less of it coming in, it's going to underperform. And so you can get as detailed and intricate as you want, even in these roasters that don't have a huge price tag on.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a matter of recognizing. Ultimately, I'm trying to heat coffee as consistently, sufficiently and consistently as possible.
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing. That's what
Yeah.
roasting is: evenly, efficiently, and consistently. Right. That's what I'm doing. So knowing that, what can affect it, and what might I need to record. Um, all that to say, I love keep KISS, keep it simple, Stephen. I tell myself
Yeah.
that all the time, and and in that regard, like I do like being able to tailor something like a notebook system
Mm-hmm.
to what you're doing. Makes a ton of sense. You can make this whatever you want, and you can even put like tasting notes later, so
Yeah.
oh, I really like this coffee. It's super
Yeah.
helpful because if you do 6 roasts of one coffee, one of them stands out, but you don't know which one corresponds to the notes.
Yeah.
Not helpful either. But
Yeah.
anyway, Catherine, any more? Like, obviously, we've not said nearly enough about this. I think we say every other episode, like record your roast.
Yeah.
Now we've kind of laid it out. But yeah, this was an episode that we really wanted to put together, just because no one has asked directly, like, how do I do this at a micro level, and we wanted to
Yeah.
dive into that. So
Yeah.
hopefully, if you're getting into coffee roasting, or if you've been in it for a while and just kind of fallen off like me, of taking notes, this will inspire you and help you to get to that next level of coffee roasting. So, dear listeners, if you have any different perspective about what we're talking about, any ideas, especially like if you've been logging your roast in a certain way, People, yeah, I didn't talk about this. My fresh roast, I had a Frankenstein set up. Right, I dropped a
Mm-hmm.
temperature probe down in the unit. So,
Yeah.
like, if you've done something like that, that's been helpful. If you've found a way of recording your roast that has been super easy, especially we like that.
Yeah.
But getting to the main points, drop that information in the comments and let us know about it. Let other people know about it so we can all
Yeah.
share this and get better. We hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we enjoyed making it. And if you did, please leave us a rating or review on whatever platform you found us on. Share us with your friends. We're excited to watch the Roast Yourself podcast grow, and that only happens through you. We could not do this without our coworkers and our friends here that enable us to take the time out to record these episodes, and also who do the editing and make us sound and look good, and hopefully did a great job of putting high quality photos of our chicken scratch on
Yeah.
this so you could see it. If not, don't blame them. We just kind of threw this together. So, but we couldn't do it without them. Thank you guys so much for what you do. Remember, dear listeners, send your questions, any questions you have about coffee roasting, tasting, or enjoying to questions at riypod.com. Otherwise, have a great day and happy roasting.
Happy roasting.